Hey there, sleepyheads. Welcome back to the channel. Before we drift into tonight's tale of the gods who fell asleep, I'd love to know where in the world are you watching from tonight? And what time is it for you right now? Drop it in the comments below. It's always magical, seeing how far and wide this sleepy little community reaches. All right, lights low, blankets up. Let's begin. Tonight's story begins before the Land of Ooo was ever known by name. Before the Mushroom War, before wizards or kingdoms, before even the first spark of language was whispered into the air. There was only stillness, a vast, shimmering ocean of potential, floating quietly between the stars. Some say the universe itself was asleep back then. Others believe it was dreaming of everything that would one day exist. In that slumbering cosmos, there were beings. Not gods in the way mortals imagine them, not creatures of form or bone, but luminous shapes of will and memory, consciousnesses so immense they filled whole galaxies just by being. They were called by many names across the eons: the Shapers, the Dreamborn, the Star Sleepers. Most never awoke, but those who did left behind faint fingerprints upon reality, small marks that would one day become mountains, rivers, even hearts, capable of love and sorrow. Among them were those we now half remember through stories and songs: Orgalorg, the terror of the stars; GOLB, the unmaker of patterns; and Prismo, the dreamer who builds realities from thought. But there were others unnamed, unseen, who simply faded when the light of time grew too bright. And yet, if one listens closely to the soft hum of Oo's night sky, they can almost hear their echoes, deep beneath the breathing of the wind. When we look back across the ages, it's easy to imagine the cosmos as empty, a void waiting to be filled. But in truth, it was never truly empty. It was filled with rest, a kind of infinite sleep that allowed new existence to bloom like tiny sparks within a boundless night. Each spark carried a fragment of a dreamer's essence, and together they wove the first fabric of reality. This is why the universe even now hums with that sleepy rhythm, because it was born from slumber, not chaos. If you could drift back far enough, beyond the stars' first glow, beyond the dust of collapsed worlds, you might find them, the first dreamers. Their forms would seem familiar and strange at once. They are said to have bodies of sound and light, and their breath moves like wind through the concept of time. When one of them stirs, whole galaxies tremble. When one sighs, comets are born. And when they sleep, civilizations rise and fall without them ever noticing. There's a quiet poetry in that, the idea that existence itself may be nothing more than the afterthought of a dream too vast to end. The Mushroom War, the fall of humanity, the birth of candy people, all might be threads in that same tapestry, woven from the dreams of gods who never meant to wake. Ooh, as we know it, feels like a dream that kept going even after the dreamer turned away. Its mountains curve like waves frozen in mid-motion. Its creatures are whimsical, impossible, alive with contradictions. Magic seeps through the soil as naturally as air fills the lungs. And in every quiet corner, a cave, a forest, an abandoned ruin, there's a sense that something ancient once lingered there and maybe still does. Legends whispered among old wizards and wandering spirits tell of cosmic beings who fell into endless sleep long before the first mushroom cloud split the sky. They say the earth remembers where they lie. Massive chambers deep beneath the crust, glowing faintly with colors unseen by mortal eyes. Sometimes adventurers claim to hear heartbeats echoing far below the ground, slow and rhythmic, as if the planet itself were breathing. Perhaps it's just the pulse of magma, or perhaps it's something else, the pulse of a sleeping god, dreaming still. When you think about it, the Land of Ooo has always been haunted by dreams. Finn's adventures often cross into realms that feel less like other dimensions and more like lucid memories of the universe itself. The cosmic owl, forever fluttering through the veil of sleep, carries messages that seem to come from places even the stars have forgotten. Dreams and Adventure Time are not private, they are portals, bridges between realities, shared among all beings who can imagine. And so, when we speak of the gods who fell asleep, we are not speaking of a single moment of rest. We are speaking of an entire cosmic pattern, a rhythm that flows through every layer of Oo's existence. It's in the way the sun dips below the horizon, in the sigh of the wind through the grassland, in the quiet hum of an old machine that still remembers what it was built for. The world has learned to dream the way its creators once did. Has something deeply peaceful in that thought, that even after destruction, after chaos and rebirth, the universe has found a way to keep dreaming through us, through Ooo, through every strange and beautiful creature that walks its surface. Because when a god dreams, it doesn't just imagine life, it becomes it. The dreamers and the dream are one, intertwined forever in the slow current of time. And maybe, just maybe, that's why Ooo feels alive. Not just in the magical sense, but in the spiritual one, as if every blade of grass, every flickering flame, every drop of water carries a trace of divine drowsiness. The kind of peace that comes from something ancient still sleeping beneath it all, content to let the world play upon its chest like sunlight on water. When night falls and the stars shimmer over the Candy Kingdom, it's easy to forget the enormity of what lies beyond. But that's the beauty of dreams. They never shout. They whisper. They hum softly, waiting for the right moment to be remembered again. And in that hush, as Ooo settles into its nightly rhythm, you can almost sense them. The gods who never woke. Their minds stretched across constellations, their thoughts forming the tides in the flow of magic, their slumber giving shape to the impossible wonders of this world. They do not rule. They do not command. They simply dream. Their dreams are the architecture of existence itself, the quiet foundation of every story, every life, every heartbeat in this strange and luminous land. And as the dream continues, we drift further into their memory, deeper into the silent ages before Ooo truly began. When we drift further into that ancient hush, the boundaries of time begin to blur. There is no before, no after, only the soft pulse of creation, dreaming itself into being. If you listen closely, you might hear it a hum beneath everything, a lullaby so low, so patient, that it could be mistaken for silence. But that hum, it's the sound of the first beings sleeping, their thoughts woven into the very atoms that make up the stars. Some of those beings once stirred, perhaps briefly, perhaps for millennia. When they did, they shaped entire realities without meaning to. One's dream became a field of time that could fold itself, birthing Prismo's time room. Another's heartbeat created vibrations that we now feel as magic, a rhythm that flows through Oo's rivers and forests like unseen electricity. These were not deliberate creations. They were the accidental consequences of divinity dreaming. Like the way a sleeper murmurs a word without knowing, and that word becomes a world. In the distant cosmic eras before the first comet fell to Earth, some of these beings drifted too close to the material plane. Their dreams condensed into shapes, each one stranger than the last. Some appeared as creatures titans, leviathans, serpents of radiant energy that fed upon the edges of reality. Others manifested as landscapes, mountains that breathe, oceans that whisper, caverns that glow with memories of forgotten constellations. When these dream forms cooled, they became the bones of the world we now call Ooo. Every hill, every stone is a fragment of divine imagination, hardened into matter. But time, like sleep, changes everything. Even gods cannot dream forever without slipping deeper into the kind of slumber where they no longer know they're dreaming at all. And that's what the ancients called the Great Descent, a slow falling inward, where awareness dissolves into stillness. And as each god sank into that deeper sleep, the universe around them settled too, crystallizing into form, into matter, into a story waiting to unfold. From their dreams came the great cosmic figures we recognize: GOLB, a dream of chaos and dissolution, born from the subconscious fear of the first gods; Orgolorg, the devourer of stars who represents hunger and transformation; and Prismo, who might be the lucid dreamer among them, a consciousness that realized it was dreaming and learned to shape its own illusion. They were not alone, but they were the ones who lingered closest to waking, and that nearness made them powerful and sometimes dangerous. Imagine a being so ancient that its sigh becomes the Big Bang. Imagine its thoughts drifting like comets, tracing arcs of destiny across the night sky. When such a being begins to tire, to sink into rest again, its dreams do not vanish. They ripple outward, carrying echoes of that divine fatigue. Those ripples eventually become stories, myths, whispered by mortals who can still sense the warmth of that cosmic breath. In one ancient text, the Scroll of Sleeping Sun, said to have been written by the last star priest before the fall of human civilization, there's a line that reads, "When the heavens grew quiet, the world below began to dream in their stead." That single sentence feels like the foundation of Ooo itself. When the gods withdrew into their timeless rest, the world took up the dream for them. Every creature, every blade of grass, became a vessel for the ongoing story that the cosmos was too drowsy to continue telling consciously. That may be why life in Ooo feels both miraculous and fragile. Why magic coexists with absurdity, and why even the smallest acts seem to carry a hint of destiny. The gods did not disappear, they just stopped moving, stopped thinking. And their quiet became the stage on which life began to sing. There's a serene kind of tragedy in that. The idea that everything we know, the beauty, the chaos, the laughter, and the sorrow might simply be a continuation of someone else's dream. But it also feels comforting, because if the universe was born from sleep, then rest is sacred. Dreams are not a distraction from life, they are its origin. Some philosophers of Ooo, like the ancient wizard Icaran, whose name is carved into the hidden stones of Wizard City, once proposed that all magic is memory. Not memory as we understand it, but the memories of those sleeping gods replaying themselves as energy. When a wizard casts a spell, they are not creating something new. They are borrowing a spark from an old dream, a flicker from a time before time. And that's why magic feels unpredictable, emotional, alive. It's not science, it's remembrance. Even the strongest wizards like Evergreen or Betty only ever touch the edge of that vast reservoir of sleeping thought. They draw from it unknowingly, as if sipping from the fringe of eternity. Sometimes, when they go too far, when they awaken, something best left sleeping, the consequences ripple outward in ways that can't be undone. Evergreen's comet, Magic Man's curse, Simon's crown, all of them, perhaps, traces of divine memories half awake. And so the first age of the universe wasn't defined by wars or kingdoms, but by breathing, by the gentle inhaling and exhaling of creation itself. That was the sound of gods settling into their long rest. They were not banished, not slain, simply asleep, as all things eventually are. When the last of them sank beneath the horizon of consciousness, the stars dimmed and the silence deepened. In that moment, reality took its first independent breath, the first breath without divine supervision. It was the dawn of everything mortal, and yet it began in perfect stillness. The echo of the god's slumber rolled outward, and from it, the universe began to murmur softly to itself. That murmur became the pulse of time, slow, patient, everlasting. And as eons passed, that pulse carried whispers, faint impressions of what once was, images of vast beings sleeping in the void, the memory of their warmth woven into the very rhythm of existence. Somewhere within that endless murmur, the world began to dream of shape. The first lands rose slowly from the primordial seas, curling like the folds of a blanket. The air thickened with color and sound, and in the silence between one heartbeat and the next, the memory of the gods became the blueprint for life itself. It is said that the oceans were the first to remember carrying within their tides the pulse of sleeping giants, the ebb and flow that mirrors the slow breathing of the cosmos. Then came the earth, rich and heavy, holding deep within it the warmth of the divine. Volcanoes rose like old scars, each eruption a distant echo of the energy those beings once released with a single thought. The winds followed gentle, curious, restless. They swept across the newborn land like whispers, carrying the faint voices of the dreamers, still lost in their infinite sleep. In those earliest days, the world had no distinction between magic and nature. Every movement, every sound was a prayer, though there was no one yet to speak it. Reality was flexible, tender, shaped by intention rather than rule. It was as though the universe hadn't fully decided what it wanted to be, and so it drifted between possibilities, glowing softly with the dreams of its sleeping creators. Some ancient ruins scattered across Ooo may be remnants from that time fragments of a world that half existed between thought and stone. Crystalline pillars found deep beneath the grassland, or the impossible geometries beneath the ice kingdom, might be fossils of unfinished dreams, structures that once served as anchors for divine imagination. If the gods truly dreamed the foundations of reality, then perhaps these remnants are not ruins at all, but memory clusters, frozen echoes of creation's first heartbeat. Even now, certain locations seem to hum faintly at night. The nightosphere's edges pulse like veins of light. The crater of the mushroom bomb glows in impossible patterns, and deep within the fire kingdom's core, flames flicker in rhythms too deliberate to be random. These are not coincidences. They may be the places where the dream still touches the waking world, where the veil between divine slumber and mortal life grows thin. When the first beings of intelligence emerged long before the tribes, before Simon or Marceline, or even the Mushroom War, they might have felt these whispers in the earth. Perhaps they didn't understand them, but they felt them nonetheless. A comfort, a warning, a song that no one remembered writing. Some ancient cultures believed that dreams were messages from the gods. In truth, they might have been messages from the gods to themselves, echoing through time. Reminders of who they once were, scattered among the thoughts of smaller waking minds. That could explain the strange unity that flows through Oo's history, how so many beings, no matter their form or kingdom, share the same quiet yearning for connection, creation, and rest. Even the darkest entities, even those born of GOLB's chaos, carry the same spark. It is the residue of the original dream, the idea that all things, even destruction, exist to serve the balance of sleep and awakening. The gods were not enemies of one another. They were facets of the same slumbering mind, each expressing a different emotion through its dream. And as their dreams intertwined, they created the paradoxical beauty of Ooo, a place where sweetness and horror coexist, where every absurd thing still feels strangely natural. Sometimes I imagine what it would feel like to stand at the edge of that dawn, before the first sunrise, to look out across an unformed world glowing softly in the half-light of creation, and to sense that somewhere above, beyond the clouds, Immense beings were still asleep, their minds weaving constellations into the dark. It must have been peaceful. Not lonely, but serene, like resting in the space between heartbeats. There are stories that a few of those beings did not fall completely asleep. They lingered half awake, drifting like spirits between dream and reality. The people of Ooo would later call them by different names: the comet spirits, the witnesses, the silent choir. They are said to appear only in moments of great change when time itself hesitates. Their presence marks the subtle shift between eras, when one dream fades and another begins. In a way, they are caretakers of the cosmic rhythm, ensuring that the divine sleep remains undisturbed. When Finn was born, one such entity, the Catalyst Comet, descended again, as it had countless times before. Its purpose was renewal, rebirth, continuation of the cycle. Perhaps it was not a weapon or a messenger at all, but the faint stirring of a sleeping god adjusting its posture, shifting its dream ever so slightly. Every 1,000 years the world trembles as the dream reshapes itself. New heroes rise, new stories unfold, and yet the deeper truth remains unchanged. The gods are still asleep, and Ooo is still dreaming. Maybe that's why Ooo never stops changing. Why its reality feels so fluid, its timelines folding into themselves like the ripples of water disturbed by a gentle breath. Because the dream is ongoing. The sleeper has not yet awakened, and each passing moment is simply another heartbeat in eternity. All that we call time, every age, every kingdom, every fall and rebirth might be nothing more than the slow rhythm of a divine pulse, echoing through the layers of reality. And somewhere in that rhythm, in the deep stillness that lingers between those cosmic beats, the oldest part of the universe still waits, vast, peaceful, unknowable. Its silence is not absence, but patience. The patience of a dream that has never truly ended. If you close your eyes for a moment, you can almost feel it, that slow, endless breathing of the cosmos, the pulse that hums beneath everything. It's not something loud or distant. It's subtle, like the warmth you feel from a candle in a dark room, or the faint vibration of the earth beneath your feet when the wind carries faraway thunder. That rhythm has never stopped. It simply changes shape. Every star, every dream, every heartbeat in Ooo follows its tempo, a melody older than memory. In that deep stillness, the god's sleep became the canvas upon which existence painted itself. Every creature born into this world carried within it a trace of divine fatigue, a quiet echo of that first rest. The animals that curl beneath ancient trees, the humans who once built towers to the sky, even the monsters who roam the ruins, all of them are, in their own way, fragments of that same dream continuing. It's as though the universe wanted company in its slumber, and so it dreamed beings who could wander its sleeping thoughts. Somewhere along the line, awareness emerged. The stars began to watch themselves through mortal eyes. That may have been the moment when life truly began, when the dream learned it could reflect upon itself. The gods had not awakened, but their dream had grown deep enough to wonder what it meant to exist. And from that gentle spark, the first songs were sung, the first fires lit, the first stories whispered into the dusk. In one of the earliest myths found in the ruins beneath Ooo fragments etched in an alphabet long forgotten, there is a simple phrase: "The sky remembers the sea." Scholars never agreed on what it meant, but some believe it speaks of that original kinship, the way everything that exists was once united in the same slumber. The heavens and the earth, the gods and the mortals, the dream and the dreamer all remembering one another across the folds of time. And if that is true, then every act of creation we see in Ooo, from bubblegum science to the elemental rebirths, is not invention, but recollection. Creation, after all, might just be remembering what the cosmos once dreamed. When Princess Bubblegum builds new life, or when Ice King writes his lonely songs to the moon, they are echoing something older, the memory of creation itself, replayed through mortal hands. Every discovery, every mistake, every story told by firelight is another ripple in the ancient sea of dreams. There are places in Ooo where this connection still feels tangible. The nightosphere, though chaotic and dark, hums with a strange order beneath its madness. The realm of Prismo glows with the calm familiarity of an unending nap. Even the citadel, cold and distant, carries the scent of a long-forgotten divinity. Each realm, each pocket of existence, may be a chamber of the same sleeping mind, the many rooms of a god's dream, scattered through the corridors of time. Those who have glimpsed the deeper truths, like Simon Petrikov, when the crown whispered memories, not his own, often describe the same feeling, a sense of infinite recognition, as though they were remembering something they had always known but could never fully say. It's the same feeling that comes in dreams when you stand somewhere you've never been, yet feel you belong there. That's what the first gods felt as they drifted into sleep, the comfort of being both lost and home, both dreaming and real. When the Mushroom War burned the surface of the world, that ancient rhythm did not falter. Even in ruin, the dream persisted. From ashes rose the kingdoms, the strange magic of candy and flame and slime and ice. It was as though the dream itself was adapting, reshaping its tone, making beauty out of aftermath. Ooo, in its whimsical chaos, became proof that dreams can survive even destruction. The gods slept on, unaware that their imagination had taken root and was living a life of its own. And so every night, when Ooo quiets, when the kingdoms settle, when the rivers grow still, when even the stars seem to hold their breath, it is not merely sleep that descends. It is reunion, the world sinking again with the rhythm of its creators. Each slumber, each dream is a small echo of that first divine rest. Maybe that's why dreams in Ooo carry such weight. They are not illusions. They are conversations, whispers between the sleeping world and the sleeping gods who birthed it. Sometimes when Finn dreams of other lives, or when Jake's soul drifts beyond form, perhaps they are touching the edges of that greater sleep, the boundary where mortal dreams blend with divine ones, where the same quiet hum that once shaped the stars hums again, this time within a human heart. It's a reminder that the distance between gods and mortals is not measured in power, but in awareness. We are all dreaming in different depths of the same ocean. And if we follow that thought to its gentlest conclusion, it becomes clear. The gods never truly left Ooo. They are the air that sighs through the forests, the warmth that glows beneath the ice, the pulse that keeps the world gently awake. They are the silence between every heartbeat, the pause before every dawn. Their dreams are not over. They have simply changed form, finding new shapes to inhabit, new stories to tell. And maybe that's what the dawn really is, not light chasing away the dark, but the moment when one dream gives birth to another, when the gods breathe softly in their sleep, and the world rises once more to carry their memory forward. Ooo, in all its strangeness and sweetness, is that memory, a fragment of a god's dream, still alive, still evolving. And as the stars shimmer quietly above it, they too remember faint echoes of the first dreamers who taught the universe how to rest. Somewhere beneath all things, those gods still sleep. And the world, like a faithful companion, keeps dreaming beside them, patient, gentle, infinite. Beneath the quiet surface of Ooo, under the roots of forests and the bones of long-forgotten cities, there lies another world. It is not mapped, nor named, and few have ever glimpsed it. But if one listens closely in the stillness between distant earthquakes, or the deep rumble of the earth settling, you might hear it breathing, slow, patient, and ancient. A rhythm that does not belong to the living, but to something far older. For while the surface of Ooo hums with color and laughter, the ground below carries a different kind of song. A sound like the turning of great stones or the sigh of something vast shifting in its sleep. It's easy to forget that the land itself is alive, not merely in the way plants grow or rivers flow, but in a way far deeper. It has memory, and it dreams. Old stories whisper that long before the Mushroom War, before even the first elementals found their form, there were beings who sank beneath the world to rest. They were the architects of balance, the primal forces that shaped water, fire, air, and earth, not as elements, but as emotions. When the last age collapsed, they descended into the dark, curling like stars extinguished beneath the sea. And there they remain, dreaming the shape of the world above. Some believe they fell by choice, sinking into slumber to preserve the order of things. Others say they were forced buried by the weight of their own creations, imprisoned in the very world they built. But whether willing or not, their rest became the foundation of Oo's strange vitality. Their dreams seeped upward, filling mountains with quiet awareness and oceans with endless depth. Every tremor, every distant quake, may be their restless turning, a divine gesture felt as a natural phenomenon. There are places where this dream touch is strongest. The crystal catacombs beneath the Candy Kingdom, where walls shimmer like frozen lightning. The glowing caverns under the Fire Kingdom, where flames breathe without air. And far to the north, beyond the Ice Kingdom's glittering plains, deep shafts of ancient basalt descend into the planet's heart where, it is said, the sleepers lie. Few who have ventured there ever return the same. They speak of hearing voices that sound not with words, but with feelings like a tide washing through the mind. They describe walls that seem to pulse, faintly alive, and veins of luminescent ore that move like blood beneath stone. And sometimes, deep below, they feel warmth not from magma or friction, but from something living, something breathing slowly in the dark. The oldest wizards believed these were the dream chambers, pockets of the world that formed around the bodies of sleeping gods. Over the ages, they were forgotten, buried under new layers of civilization and time. Yet the signs persist. Occasional tremors that make no geological sense, caverns that seem to reshape themselves overnight, and creatures that rise from the deep with knowledge of things no mortal could ever have known. There are records, 2 old tablets hidden in the library of the Nightosphere, describing rituals meant to listen to the sleepers. They called it stone divining, placing one's ear against the earth until one could hear the rhythm of the dream below. Those who listened too long sometimes vanished, taken perhaps into the deeper layers of the dream itself. Others returned changed, speaking in riddles as if carrying messages from something vast and half awake. When you stand alone in Oo's quietest corners in the ruins of the Mushroom City or on the black sands beyond Wizard City, you can sometimes feel it too, the faint hum beneath your feet. It's the same hum that threads through the heart of every volcano, every quake, every ancient song sung to the ground. The world doesn't simply hold life. It is life resting between breaths. Even Peppermint Butler, with all his occult knowledge, once hinted at this in his darker studies. He wrote that beneath the layers of bedrock and magic, there exists a deep sea of slumber from which all power flows. He warned that disturbing it could wake the wrong kind of thing. But the truth is, those beings were never fully gone. They are present in every moment of Oo's existence, not dead, not awake, simply dreaming. Perhaps that's why the land seems to react to emotion, why sorrow brings storms and joy brightens the day in ways that defy nature. The sleepers beneath the world are not separate from it. They are woven to its essence. Their dreams are the unseen current that guides the growth of forests, the path of rivers, even the passage of time. And when the balance falters, when one force grows too strong, or chaos spills too freely, the ground trembles. It is not anger. It is the world adjusting itself, a god shifting beneath its blankets. Some of the elementals may even be fragments of those same ancient beings, their consciousnesses breaking off like sparks from a fading fire. Bubblegum's precise creation, Flame Princess's restless heat, Slime Princess's fluid adaptability, and Patient St. Pim's frozen stillness, all may be reflections of something much older, asleep far below. When they act, the earth feels it. When they fall out of harmony, the very crust of Ooo stirs in response, as if the sleepers are listening, aware of their children's movements through dreams they never stopped having. The deeper one descends, the stranger the world becomes. Gravity bends, time stutters, and thought itself seems to echo. It is said that beneath the deepest roots of the planet, reality folds inward, a place where dreams and matter become indistinguishable. There, light moves like water, and sound behaves like touch. In that place, the sleepers rest, not in caves or chambers, but in something larger, an ocean of living silence, where the boundaries between self and world no longer exist. In that ocean of living silence, the sleepers do not have forms as we understand them. They are not bodies of flesh, nor even of light, but vast impressions in the world's dreaming mind. Shapes so large they could only be seen from within. The dream itself, waves of color, folds of thought, ripples in the stone fabric of creation. Each one radiates a different essence, one slow and golden like honey, another deep and blue like the heartbeat of the sea, another sharp and burning, restless and bright. When the first magicians of Ooo began to practice their craft, they didn't draw power from the stars or elements as we often believe. They drew it from the sleeper's breath. The old tomes describe it as the hum between moments, the vibration left behind when a god turns in its sleep. Those who learned to synchronize with that hum could perform miracles not through incantation, but through alignment. It's why ancient spells always required rhythm, music, or chanting. They were never just words, they were ways of matching the heartbeat of the sleeping world. Every tone of a wizard's song was like a pebble dropped into that silent sea, rippling out to touch something beyond comprehension. The most powerful among them claimed they could see the dreams themselves, visions of landscapes that had not yet formed, skies that had forgotten their suns, and creatures whose shapes made no sense in waking life. But the deeper a magician listened, the greater the risk became. For in the dreams of gods, not all visions are meant for mortal minds. There are records from the age before Simon Petrikov's transformation accounts of wizards who stared too long into the silence and came back whispering in dead languages, their eyes filled with stillness. Some began to sleepwalk endlessly as though trying to return to that ancient rhythm. Others simply laid down and never woke again, their bodies turning to crystal, their minds folded into the subterranean song. Many believe those crystals found in caverns deep beneath Ooo are remnants of these lost souls, forever resonating with the dreams they could not escape. If one listens closely, each crystal hums faintly with its own tone. Together they form a low, ghostly choir, echoing the memory of gods who once breathed beneath the world. Sometimes these whispers reach the surface. They manifest as strange coincidences. A forest growing in perfect spirals overnight, a volcano cooling in the shape of a sleeping face, a cave mouth opening like a yawn. The Land of Ooo is filled with such quiet messages, tiny signals from the dream below. And though they are subtle, those who pay attention, like Marceline, or Bubblegum, or even Ice King in his lucid moments, have felt their pull. Marceline once described a sensation after playing her bass in an abandoned valley. She said the ground sang back, vibrating in a way that made her chest ache, as though the earth itself was remembering an old tune. Perhaps it was not mere resonance. Perhaps she unknowingly stirred a dreamer's pulse. Even Finn has glimpsed traces of this slumbering world, when he fell into that strange, vision-filled dimension, the farm world. The boundary between dream and reality was thinner than ever. His actions there carried echoes, rippling backward and forward through timelines, awakening subtle tremors in the foundations of Ooo. Some speculate that the sleepers briefly stirred then, sensing the distortion in their dream. There are hints scattered across the land, strange doorways, ruins of temples built to no known deity, runes depicting great eyes closed in slumber. In the depths of the mushroom ruins, explorers found murals showing immense figures curled beneath mountains, their faces peaceful, their bodies entwined with roots and rivers. The inscriptions called them the Quiet Gods. One text, barely legible, translated roughly to, "They do not die, they do not wake. The world is their pillow, the sky their breath." It's a haunting thought that the very ground we walk upon is resting atop something alive, something that dreams us as we dream it. And maybe that explains Oo's strangeness better than any mutation or magic could. The warped landscapes, the talking candy, the endless dance between chaos and rebirth, they are not accidents of the Mushroom War, but reflections of a greater sleeping mind. As long as those minds remain asleep, Ooo will continue to reshape itself, endlessly cycling through balance and imbalance, peace and entropy. But if even one of them were to wake, the dream might change. The world itself could be rewritten in an instant, not through destruction, but through reimagining. Perhaps that's what the nightosphere's energy feeds upon. The discarded fragments of those dreams, the half-forgotten emotions of cosmic beings who never truly stopped feeling. Maybe the reason demons and nightmares thrive there is because they are byproducts of divine sleep, the restless twitching of a god subconscious, forming entire realms of thought and fear. In the silence beneath the silence, the sleepers dream on, their thoughts flowing upward like sap through a tree, coloring every moment of life above. Ooo is not built upon them. Ooo is them, dreaming themselves into 1,000 forms, waiting for the time when memory and matter will once again be the same. Deep within that dreaming sea beneath the world, the gods' thoughts weave through time like roots, touching every living thing without ever truly waking. Their slumber shapes destinies and whispers, not through command or prophecy, but through suggestion, like the faint pull of a tide on drifting sand. When a hero feels inexplicably called to adventure, when a kingdom rises from ruins without clear reason, perhaps it is one of these gods shifting slightly, dreaming a new possibility into being. There are legends among the oldest earth spirits that describe the sleepers not as deities, but as dreamers who once built the first worlds through imagination alone. Creation, they say, was not an act of power, but of rest, a dream so vivid it became real. But over eons, the dreamers began to fade, drawn deeper into slumber, leaving their creation to wander on its own. The Land of Ooo, with all its chaotic beauty, may simply be the continuation of their last shared dream, unfolding still. If that is true, then perhaps everything we call magic is just a side effect of that dream persisting the lingering warmth of their imagination. Every spark of wizardry, every enchanted forest, every shape-shifting creature may be born from the same source, the quiet, rhythmic dreaming of the world beneath. The cosmic entities of Ooo, even beings like GOLB, Orgolorg, or the Lich, might all be fragments of this same tapestry. Imagine this: when the sleepers first began to drift into unconsciousness, their dreams diverged, fracturing into reflections of their innermost natures. One dreamed of creation and balance. That dream became the elementals. Another dreamed of knowledge and control, perhaps, giving rise to the cosmic order that Princess Bubblegum instinctively seeks. But one among them dreamed of the end, of silence, of a universe purified of noise and motion. And from that dream, the Lich was born not as evil, but as the embodiment of the desire to rest eternally. The Lich's obsession with stillness, his wish to extinguish all life, mirrors a cosmic yearning for total quiet. If existence is a dream, then he is the dreamer's longing to stop dreaming, to finally sleep without visions. His hunger for nothingness is not cruelty, but a distorted echo of divine fatigue. In that way, even the darkest being in Ooo carries within him a trace of the sleeper's ancient wish. And then there's GOLB Chaos incarnate, devourer of order, dissolver of meaning. Some scholars of the nightosphere believe GOLB is not truly a separate being at all, but the moment when two dreams overlap, one of creation and one of oblivion. The friction between them became chaos itself. His red form, his shapelessness, his silence, all speak to a paradox. GOLB is not awake or asleep. He is the flicker between breaths, the split second where dreaming becomes reality. To think of Ooo this way is to realize that the entire world, every character and kingdom, exists within the slow respiration of something vast. The forests breathe with it, the oceans turn in rhythm, and even the stars drift in their courses according to its pulse. The sleepers are not beneath Ooo, they are Ooo, dreaming outward into being. Perhaps that is why the ancient ruins of the Mushroom Age still hum with power even after millennia. Machines left to rust seem to awaken at random, lights flickering, gears turning for no reason. They are resonating with the deep dream, catching brief pulses of the world's memory. It's said that somewhere in the ruined tunnels near the Gumball ruins, there's a chamber that glows only when the moon passes directly overhead. For a few brief moments, the hum of the sleepers can be heard as a low, melodic vibration, almost like a lullaby. The locals call it the breath of the earth. Some travelers who have heard it describe visions of impossible things, landscapes where mountains float on rivers of light, where suns rise in reverse, where ancient beings smile with closed eyes. These visions fade upon waking, but they leave a residue, a lingering sense that Ooo is alive, not as a metaphor, but as a breathing organism. In a sense, the inhabitants of Ooo are like dreams within a dream, each carrying a spark of that cosmic imagination. The heroes, the villains, even the smallest creatures, all play their roles in maintaining the delicate rhythm between rest and awakening. Finn's relentless hope, Bubblegum's quest for order, Marceline's yearning for connection, all are reflections of the same hidden current, keeping the dream alive just long enough for meaning to persist. But there are signs that the balance grows thinner with time. The dreams of the sleepers are not eternal. Even divine minds can tire. The subtle earthquakes, the rising chaos of magic, the thinning barrier between dimensions, they can all be signs that the dream is beginning to fade. The sleepers are stirring ever so slightly, as if some new call from above is reaching them. When the world trembles, when time skips, when old magic surges unpredictably, it may be because a god has turned in its sleep. The dream ripples outward, changing everything it touches. Perhaps that is why so many of Oo's miracles and tragedies happen without explanation, because they are, in truth, the reflexes of something vast and unaware. The ground sighs, the mountains shift, and in the silence beneath all things, a slow breath continues. The sleepers dream on, ancient and endless, their thoughts weaving through the roots of the world, shaping destinies like the tide shapes the shore. There are moments in Ooo when the veil between waking and dreaming thins nights when the moon hangs too low, or when the stars move in quiet patterns unseen before. On those nights, the air itself seems to shimmer with presence. Rivers slow, winds hush, and even the animals of the woods fall silent. It's as though the entire world holds its breath, listening for something deep below. Some call it the Earth's pause, others call it the turning in sleep. Ancient shamans believed that during these moments, one could commune directly with the sleepers, not through words, but through feeling by letting the body mirror the stillness of the earth. They would lay flat upon the ground, arms spread wide, and breathe in rhythm with the soil. Over hours, their hearts would slow until they could hear a second pulse, deeper and slower than their own. That pulse, they said, was the heartbeat of creation itself. To feel it was to glimpse the very core of existence, the dreaming mind of Ooo. Yet for all their wisdom, even they warned against seeking too much knowledge from below. The dreams of gods are not meant to be interpreted. They are the raw language of creation, vast, contradictory, and endlessly shifting. To look too closely is to lose one's own shape, as if dissolving into the same current that sustains everything. That, perhaps, is what became of the earliest civilizations. Those who tried to harness the sleeper's power, to turn divine dreaming into science or magic. Their cities fell not because of war or decay, but because they were absorbed, dreamt back into the soil from which they rose. Even now, remnants of those dream cities can be found if one knows where to look. In the high desert, ruins shimmer faintly at dusk before fading with the dawn. Beneath certain lakes, divers have glimpsed spires made of light, vanishing when touched. These are not illusions. They are memories, still alive in the mind of the sleeping world. Sometimes the dream of a city returns for a night or two, as if the gods momentarily remember what they once imagined. And perhaps in their dreaming, they also remember the end of the old world, the flash, the silence, the long snowfall of ash. Maybe that memory, buried deep within them, is what keeps Ooo from collapsing entirely. The world ended once, but because the dreamers never truly awoke, it began again reshaped, repopulated, reimagined through slumber. In this way, every age is a new verse in an eternal lullaby. There's a quiet mercy in that idea that destruction and creation are not opposites, but breaths of the same sleeper. When a kingdom falls, when forests burn, when stars die out, the loss is not final. It is simply the world exhaling before it dreams again. The sleepers beneath Ooo may never rise, but their rhythm ensures that nothing ever truly ends. Some scholars of magic, those rare few who bridge science and myth, believe that the true danger lies not in waking the sleepers, but in them ceasing to dream. For if their dreaming stops, reality itself may still, like a song cut mid-note. The skies would dim, time would harden, and all motion would halt, not in fire, not in death, but in eternal stillness. The Lich's vision, in that sense, is not a corruption, but a prophecy. He seeks what the sleepers unconsciously desire, perfect rest. And yet Ooo resists. Its people dream, love, fight, and rebuild small ripples that keep the divine current flowing. Every act of creation, every song, every spark of friendship is a counterweight to that endless pull toward silence. The heroes of Ooo, knowingly or not, keep the gods dreaming. They are the lullabies that keep the universe alive. When Finn stands on a cliff and watches the horizon glow, when Marceline hums to herself in an empty field, When bubblegum tinkers late into the night trying to bring order to chaos, all these acts feed into the rhythm of the sleeper's breath. The dream continues because they continue to feel. If you could listen close enough, not just with your ears, but with the stillness of your mind, you might hear it now, a low, resonant sound like the murmur of distant thunder. It's everywhere, in the stones, in the trees, in the quiet between raindrops. That is the heartbeat of the gods who fell asleep, still echoing through every moment of the world. And so, when you walk through Ooo and feel the soft vibration under your feet, when the ground hums with no clear cause, remember that it isn't just geology or magic. It's the memory of ancient being still dreaming us into being. Their rest is our reality, their imagination, our sky. Somewhere far below, in a darkness so deep that light itself becomes thought, something vast exhales. The mountains tremble, the tides shift, and far above, the stars shimmer like thoughts on the surface of a sleeping mind. The sleepers remain not gone, not forgotten, but patient. Their dreams continue to ripple upward, shaping the fate of Ooo one heartbeat at a time. And as long as they dream, the world will never truly end. It will keep changing, reshaping, reimagining itself in countless new forms. For even the gods who fell asleep have not stopped dreaming. They never will. There's a certain stillness that lingers in the air when one imagines the end of the world, not the roar of fire or the breaking of stone, but the silence that follows. The moment after everything collapses, when all that remains is the faint echo of what once was. That silence, gentle and eternal, may be the closest thing we have to the language of the gods who sleep beneath Ooo. For if the sleepers dreamed the beginning of all things, then surely they also dreamed the end. But unlike mortals who imagine endings as destruction, they dreamed endings as transformation. To them, the fall of one age is not death, but a change in rhythm, a shift in the melody of the world's dream. When the Mushroom War tore through the sky, scorching the earth and erasing countless lives, something remarkable happened beneath it all. The chaos above stirred the ancient dreamers below. For a moment, their slumber deepened, drawing the new world inward like breath into sleeping lungs. The apocalypse did not destroy Ooo, it folded into the dream, merging memory with magic, and from that merging, something entirely new emerged. That is why Ooo does not look like a typical post-apocalyptic wasteland. It breathes with color and absurdity, filled with creatures that seem to have stepped straight out of imagination. The war shattered science, but the dream restored wonder. Where once there were skyscrapers and metal, now stand candy castles and talking mountains. The end of humankind became the beginning of a world more alive than ever, as if the gods, sensing the ruin above, dreamt harder to keep creation alive. Some have theorized that when the first bombs fell, they carried with them a kind of psychic shock, vibration, strong enough to awaken the edge of divine awareness. The destruction became a lullaby of sorts, a song that coaxed the sleepers into deeper, more vivid dreams. And in that deeper dream, Ooo was reborn, stitched together from fragments of what once was, pieces of human memory, shards of forgotten magic, and faint traces of divine imagination. Think of it like this. The end of the old world wasn't a clean slate. It was a canvas, soaked in the ink of what came before. When the gods dreamt again, they didn't start from nothing. They painted over the ruins. That's why hints of the past still bleed through. The cracked remains of highways in the desert, the scattered relics of lost technology, the lonely shell of an abandoned cinema sitting in a forest that shouldn't exist. These are the remnants of the waking world, still visible in the texture of the dream. And sometimes those remnants speak, in whispers, in static, in ghosts of sound that drift through old machines. They are echoes of humanity's final thoughts, still replaying in the deep dream. There are recordings, faint and distorted, found by explorers in the ruins beneath the Candy Kingdom voices, saying words no one understands anymore, messages trapped in the circuitry of forgotten time. Some who've listened to them claim that the static hum beneath the voices carries the same pulse as the heartbeat of the world. It suggests that the sleepers not only preserved the world through dreaming, they preserved memory itself. The end was not erased, but transformed into myth. Every human fear and hope became symbolic, reshaped into beings that could survive in the dream. Bravery became Finn. Curiosity became bubblegum. Sorrow became Marceline, and chaos became Jake's boundless imagination. The gods did not simply dream of new being, they dreamt of emotions continuing to exist in form, so that no feeling would be lost. Marceline, in her long life, often speaks as if she remembers something deeper than mere centuries. She hums old tunes whose origins she cannot place, melodies that seem to belong to a world before the war. It's possible that she carries fragments of the old dream, a resonance between her soul and the god's memory. When she sings, she does more than express emotion. She reactivates old pathways in the dream itself. Maybe that's why her songs always make the land feel different, quieter, softer, as though Ooo itself is listening. It's comforting to think that even the apocalypse could not break the continuity of feeling. The end of civilization, the loss of countless lives, none of it truly ended, but was instead absorbed into the slow heartbeat of the dream. Pain became beauty. Destruction became rebirth. The gods dreamed through the end, transforming death into color. And yet there's a subtle sadness woven into that beauty. Because if the sleepers dream all this, then the people of Ooo, the heroes, the villains, the lovers, the wanderers, are all part of a memory being dreamt to keep the gods asleep. Their existence may not be entirely their own, but an echo of a world that once was, replaying itself to prevent divine silence. The apocalypse may have been humanity's end, but it was also the moment the world truly began to dream. As the old world fell, the gods' dreams deepened. The lights of civilization went out, but the stars seemed to shine brighter. Forests grew over cities, rivers carved through metal, and the ruins of humankind became the bones of something sacred. It was as if Ooo itself inhaled, holding its breath for centuries, reshaping its form in sleep. If we were to imagine the moment after the apocalypse, not as fire and ruin, but as silence and dream, then perhaps it looked like this. The air still buzzing faintly with radiation and memory. The sky filled with strange lights that no longer belonged to the sun or moon. In that silence, beneath the ash and dust, the dreams began to take form. From the deepest layers of the earth, slow pulses of energy rippled outward, not explosions, but heartbeats. The slumbering gods who had watched the end through the filter of their dreams began to weave fragments of the fallen world into new threads. To them, destruction was clay. They shaped it gently, turning ruin into landscape, turning memory into life. Imagine the melted glass of shattered cities becoming the foundations of crystal forests, the oceans boiling away only to return as shimmering, multicolored lakes that hummed softly under the moonlight. The fragments of satellites drifting through the upper atmosphere, reassembling into constellations that could whisper stories when the wind passed through them. All of this a reimagining, a transmutation, a world redreamed, not rebuilt. In those first centuries, after the end, time itself was unstable. The sleeping gods dreamt in spirals, and so Ooo began to twist through overlapping realities, pieces of past and future folded together. This is why you sometimes find things that shouldn't coexist. Ruins from ancient times resting beside creatures that have never existed before. Relics of human art next to life forms that glow with the logic of fantasy. It's not that these things evolved side by side, they were dreamed into the same moment. There are old ruins where clocks still tick in impossible patterns, counting hours that don't exist anymore. Some travelers say that if you listen closely in those ruins, you can hear the rhythm of the sleepers themselves, slow and endless, like a cosmic heartbeat reverberating through the stones. These are the places where dream and reality overlap most clearly. The ground feels soft, like it's made not of dirt, but of thought. Some of the wizards of Ooo, those ancient keepers of forgotten science and magic, have long debated what actually fuels their power. They call it mana, or chaos energy, or essence. But what if it's all just fragments of the gods dreaming? Every spell, every enchantment, could be a ripple in the greater dream. To cast magic would then be to disturb the dream slightly, to borrow its language for a moment, before it returns to sleep. This might explain why magic sometimes behaves unpredictably in Ooo, because the dream itself shifts as the gods' minds wander. Princess Bubblegum's attempts to rationalize her world with science often lead her to dead ends because she is studying a dream as though it were a machine. In the gods' dream, logic isn't stable. Laws bend according to emotion, not mathematics. This is why a candy person can exist and laugh, why a vampire can feel love, why a dog can stretch his body into the shape of a house. The world does not follow the rules of physics. It follows the rules of the dream. There's a quiet sort of terror in that, too. Because if Ooo is a dream, it can be forgotten. A dream that fades loses its form. The land could change overnight without warning, not from natural causes, but from the whim of divine sleep. Maybe that's why time seems to move differently there. Whole ages pass like blinks, and yet some moments feel endless. The dream's rhythm is not steady. It moves with the gods' breathing. Somewhere deep beneath Ooo, in caverns untouched by light, there are whispers that the dream once flickered just for a moment. When Simon Petrikov first put on the crown and his mind fractured under its magic, something in the dream trembled. Some believed that his transformation into the Ice King wasn't just madness, but a reflection of a temporary disturbance in the divine dream. The god's consciousness, however faint, brushed against his. It filled him with unbearable knowledge, and his human mind cracked beneath it. In a way, he became a prophet not of words, but of confusion. His ramblings, his songs, his strange logic might all be fragments of the god's own dreaming thoughts, scattered through a broken human vessel. And it wasn't just Simon. There are others in Ooo who seem to walk on the edge between waking and dreaming beings like Orgalorg, whose existence is both cosmic and deeply personal, or the cosmic owl, who drifts between dreams carrying omens that even the gods seem to respect. These are not random creatures. They are reflections of the gods' deeper awareness, still active even as they sleep. When they appear, the world briefly syncs with divine thought, creating those surreal, almost sacred moments where everything feels connected. It's possible that the entire apocalypse, the Mushroom War, the centuries of rebuilding, the rise of new life all took place within a single exhalation of divine slumber. The gods, dreaming through the end, never fully noticed it happen. And maybe that's why everything in Ooo feels like both aftermath and beginning at once, because to a sleeping god, there is no difference. If you could walk through the ages as they unfolded in that dreaming silence, you would see that the world of Ooo never truly woke up. It simply shifted between layers of sleep. Every sunrise was a blink of the gods' eyes, every storm a restless turn beneath the earth. Even the people who would one day call Ooo home, Finn, Jake, Marceline, Bubblegum, were all shaped in some way by the rhythm of those ancient dreams. When the gods dreamt through the end, they didn't only reimagine landscapes. They dreamt fragments of themselves into the living things that would wander the surface later. A spark of divinity found its way into every corner of the new world, hidden in the courage of heroes, in the songs of vampires, in the strange laughter of sentient candy. Each of these beings became a small echo of the sleeping gods, carrying a piece of their essence, unaware of the origins whispering inside them. Marceline, the vampire queen, was one such echo. Born from the chaos that followed the war, she inherited not just immortality, but memory, a kind of resonance with time itself. Her loneliness, her deep yearning, might be the faint echo of one of the gods who dreams of companionship in the void. When she sings, it feels as though her voice hums through the very bones of the world, vibrating the dream gently, as if reminding it that someone is still awake. And then there's Finn, the last human, or so it once seemed. His existence is a paradox, a human born in a world no longer built for humans. But what if that, too, is part of the dream's design? What if Finn's very presence is the dream testing itself, asking, can innocence survive in a world of aftermath? His bravery might not come from destiny or prophecy, but from the god's subconscious hope that something good could still exist after the end. The more one looks at Ooo, the more it feels like a memory repeating itself. The rivers flow in patterns that mirror neural paths. The forests breathe with the rhythm of lungs. Even the stars seem to flicker in time with something alive. The world feels like a body dreaming itself into being fragile, beautiful, and endlessly shifting. Those who study the magic of dreams, like the ancient psychic tandem war elephant or the cosmic owl, have long suggested that the boundaries between sleeping and waking are illusions in Ooo. They say that when a mortal dreams, the gods' thoughts flow through them, that every dreamer is, for a brief moment, part of the divine mind. This is why prophetic dreams are so common in Ooo, and why certain visions come true. The dreamers are simply glimpsing what the gods are already imagining. Sometimes the line between these worlds thins too much. That's when anomalies appear, strange storms of memory, waves of forgotten time, creatures that feel misplaced, as though they've wandered in from another era. These are called slips, moments when the gods' dreams bleed too strongly into the physical world. Some of Oo's strangest mysteries, like the ever-shifting nightosphere, or the way the dead worlds brush against the living realm, might be remnants of such slips. They are tears in the boundary, tiny awakenings where divine sleep momentarily stirs. And perhaps the most haunting part is this. When mortals dream of the gods dream of them in return. It's a cycle of reflection, each feeding the other. The cosmic owl, who drifts silently through this exchange, acts as a messenger, ensuring that no dream, divine or mortal, is lost. His hoots echo across both planes, guiding those who stand at the threshold between sleeping and waking. Some say his eyes reflect the gods' true faces, though no one who's seen them remembers what they looked like upon waking. But there's a reason why Oo's history is filled with forgotten ages and conflicting timelines. Time is elastic in a dream. It loops back on itself, rearranges, corrects. When one god's dream begins to fade, another's might rise to fill the void, rewriting reality without destroying it. This is how ancient cities vanish overnight, how creatures thought extinct return as if reborn, how even the moon and sun sometimes seem to behave like conscious beings. The dream keeps itself alive through renewal, never-ending, always shifting. If we listen closely to the strange silences of Ooo, the spaces between events, we can almost hear the weight of that dreaming. It hums in the wind. It rustles through the leaves of the Candy Kingdom's gardens. It thrums in the glow of the Fire Kingdom's heart. Even the Ice Kingdom's endless chill feels less like death and more like a kind of sleep, preserving the fragments of a forgotten age until they are needed again. Perhaps the gods, still dreaming beneath it all, are waiting for something, a moment when their world no longer needs to be held together by their slumber. Until then, they remain deep in rest, their breath shaping continents, their memories birthing myths, their dreams giving Ooo its fragile pulse. There's a story whispered among the older beings of Ooo, those who remember fragments of the first dawn, that the gods were not always asleep. Long ago, before the world broke, they spoke to one another through the tides, through storms, through the hum of the stars. But when the great silence came, when the last of humanity vanished beneath fire and cloud, they looked upon what was left and felt something that no god should ever feel: exhaustion. They had watched countless worlds rise and fall, but this one carried something heavier: love, creativity, sorrow, laughter. Humanity's noise was beautiful to them, and when it disappeared, the cosmos grew too quiet. So rather than destroy what was left, the gods chose to close their eyes and dream to preserve what beauty they could in the language of sleep. What remained of the world would continue, softened and reshaped by their slumbering minds. It's said that every dream they had became a new layer of Ooo. The bright and whimsical lands above were born from their gentler thoughts, while the darker, forgotten corners of the world, the dungeons, the cursed ruins, the wastelands of eternal twilight, came from their nightmares. In this balance between peace and fear, the dream kept itself alive. And when you think of it that way, the dual nature of Ooo, its joy and sadness, its sweetness and sorrow, begins to make sense. The Candy Kingdom's warmth and laughter could be the echo of one god's wish for comfort. The Ice Kingdom's loneliness might be the echo of another's grief. The Fire Kingdom's chaos, a flicker of divine anger refusing to fade. The world is not one dream, but many, overlapping and humming in harmony, or sometimes in tension. When those dreams align, peace reigns. When they drift apart, storms and wars return. There are ancient markings hidden beneath the land spirals, carved into stone, patterns older than any known language. The few who studied them claim they resemble brainwaves, as though the ground itself were recording the gods' thoughts. They pulse faintly under moonlight, almost alive. Some wizards say that if you sleep beside one, you'll dream of things not yet born, glimpses of the world still being written by the dreaming gods below. And in those dreams, mortals sometimes see glimpses of faces vast, distant, impossible to describe, not monstrous, but vast in feeling, like emotions given form. One might weep and flood the land with rain. Another might laugh and stars fall like snow. These aren't beings that humans could ever truly comprehend. They are emotions made flesh, memory given shape, and they dream not to control but to remember. Every now and then, when magic grows unstable, when strange phenomena ripple through Ooo skies turning violet, forests growing overnight, seas boiling then freezing in an instant, it might be that one of the gods has stirred slightly, half waking before drifting back into slumber. Their half-formed thoughts spill into the world like ripples across a pond. Mortals see these moments as omens or disasters, but really they are the breathing patterns of something larger than time itself. There's a peacefulness in imagining it that way, that even chaos has a rhythm. The destruction is just a sigh between dreams. And maybe that's what the gods intended all along, a world where life continues softly, where even the end of things feels like a lullaby. In this sense, the apocalypse was never truly an ending. It was a turning of the page. The gods didn't abandon the world, they cradled it in sleep, letting it reshape itself into something gentler, stranger, and endlessly renewing. The Land of Ooo is their lullaby made real, and every creature that sings, every star that glows, every wave that touches the shore carries a fragment of that divine melody. When you look at the horizon in Ooo, especially at dusk, there's a feeling that the land itself is breathing, that something vast and ancient still lies below, dreaming through the centuries. And perhaps, if one listens long enough to the hum of the earth, they might catch a whisper of that dream, a sound softer than silence, older than time. For now, the gods remain asleep, but their dreaming continues, endless and ever-changing, shaping every new dawn and dusk. And though no mortal has ever truly heard their voices, Ooo itself speaks for them in laughter, in sorrow, in the gentle pulse of life that refuses to end. The world, after all, is still dreaming, and somewhere beneath its shifting layers, the gods breathe on slow, steady waiting. If the gods of Ooo are still dreaming, then the waking world must be the echo of that dream, a fragile reflection, shimmering on the surface of something far deeper. Every breeze, every flicker of magic, every strange coincidence might just be a whisper from that deeper realm, rippling up through the soil and into the air like the faint hum of a lullaby that never stopped playing. These whispers are not voices, not in the way mortals understand sound. They are feelings, sensations, instincts that guide the living without them ever realizing it. A wanderer might suddenly turn down a path that wasn't there a moment ago, only to find safety. A child might dream of a place she has never seen, and wake to find it waiting beyond her door. These are not accidents. They are the dream's way of gently nudging the world along, ensuring that the rhythm of Ooo continues, even as its architects remain asleep. Somewhere deep in the Ice Kingdom, where the winds sing against ancient towers of frost, there are nights when the air hums faintly, like a voice caught between worlds. The sound is low, mournful, almost melodic. The penguins tilt their heads and listen. The Ice King once claimed he could hear words in that hum, not sentences, but fragments of thought, memories too large for his fragile mind to hold. He said it felt like the earth itself was remembering something, and for a moment, he was part of it. Elsewhere, in the quiet corners of the Candy Kingdom, when the night is still and the Candy citizens have long drifted to sleep, a strange warmth sometimes radiates through the ground. Princess Bubblegum has measured it countless times, puzzled by its gentle regularity, a pulse that comes and goes in cycles too slow for science to explain. She called it geothermal at first, but deep down, she knows it isn't heat from magma. It's the sleeping god's heartbeat, reaching faintly into the waking world, reminding the land that it's still alive. Marceline once told Finn during one of those late nights when the stars seem too bright that she dreams of voices that don't speak in words. She hears laughter that feels older than time, sorrow that feels endless, and sometimes, when she wakes, she can still feel it vibrating in her bones. It's not frightening to her, it's comforting, like hearing an old song from before she was born. She said that maybe the gods aren't just sleeping beneath the earth, but within the hearts of everyone who still dreams. The cosmic owl knows more about these whispers than anyone. He drifts through dreams like a shadow of intention, never fully touching the waking world, yet always aware of it. Sometimes mortals catch glimpses of him in reflective surfaces, the curve of a lake, the glimmer of glass. Those moments aren't coincidences. They are reminders that the barrier between sleeping and waking is thin, that the dream still presses gently against reality, shaping it in quiet ways. There are ancient places scattered across Ooo that hum with this same energy, sacred grounds where the waking world and the dream world overlap. The ruins of pre-war temples buried beneath the Candy Kingdom, the glass labyrinths of the crystal dimension, the roots of the great tree under which Finn and Jake's house stands. These are places where the gods' thoughts brushed too close to the surface, leaving behind echoes that never faded. Those who meditate there, or simply listen long enough, sometimes hear songs without singers, see light without source, feel presence without form. Some call these places thin spaces, where the dream leaks gently into reality like morning fog. Wizards like Peppermint Butler and Evergreen studied them in secret, hoping to harness their power. But what they discovered instead was that the dream resists control. Whenever someone tries to shape it too forcefully, the dream withdraws as though the gods themselves are protecting the balance. It's not anger they express, but a quiet insistence that the world must unfold softly, in rhythm with their sleep. And maybe that's why so many of Oo's greatest events happen not through grand design, but through small acts, a song, a friendship, a moment of forgiveness. These are the true whispers in the waking world. They are how the sleeping gods continue their work, through emotion rather than command. When a person loves, when they show kindness, they are unknowingly helping the dream remember itself. When you begin to see it that way, everything changes. The laughter of a candy citizen, the howl of a wolf in the forest, the glow of the Fire Kingdom's heart, all become notes in the same melody. The world isn't waiting for its gods to wake up. It's already alive with their dreaming, still unfolding, still humming the song of creation in a language no mortal can fully hear, but everyone can feel. There are stories told among travelers, quiet ones, meant to be shared beside fires or whispered beneath the stars about people who have heard the whispers of the sleeping gods directly. These encounters are never loud or dramatic. They happen in moments of stillness when the world feels almost paused. A fisherman in the far north once claimed that during a blizzard, the snowflakes stopped mid-air and began to glow, spelling a single word he didn't understand. A child wandering through the ruins of an old city said she heard the ground sigh softly beneath her feet, as if something vast and gentle was breathing below. Those who experience these moments often return changed. They don't gain power or knowledge, not exactly. Instead, they come back quieter. Their eyes linger on small things, the shimmer of water, the wind through old leaves, the hum of far-off lights. It's as if they've glimpsed the truth too vast to explain. And now everything else feels softer by comparison. In their calmness, they become part of the whisper themselves. Some scholars in Ooo have tried to categorize these phenomena, calling them resonant incidents. They gather notes, measure vibrations, and track the strange surges of dreamlike energy that sometimes ripple through the land, yet no pattern ever emerges. The dream doesn't follow logic, it follows emotion. It listens to longing, to wonder, to grief. That's why these whispers tend to appear near those who feel deeply, those who are awake enough to sense the subtle music of the world. Take Finn, for instance. Throughout his adventures, he's often stumbled upon moments that defy explanation, time loops, talking stones, worlds hidden inside worlds. And though he rarely questions them for long, those moments always seem to arrive when he's standing on the edge of something emotional. Heartbreak, courage, forgiveness. When Finn feels something profoundly human, the dream listens and responds. Maybe the gods, in their slumber, recognize his spirit. Maybe his story keeps them dreaming a little longer. There's a quiet theory among wizards that the dream speaks most clearly through sound, not through words, but through vibration, through music. The reason so many powerful entities in Ooo sing, from Marceline's haunting lullabies to the elemental songs of Princess Bubblegum's instruments, might be because music is the closest mortal form of the divine whisper. When someone sings with pure feeling, the boundary between sleeping and waking fades, and the dream vibrates in harmony. This is why a song can heal, why it can open doors, why even chaos seems to pause to listen. Marceline once joked that maybe her songs echo through the earth because the gods enjoy a little background music while they sleep. But there's truth in her words. Her melodies seem to travel through the land, touching things unseen. Sometimes a lake will ripple in rhythm with her tune. Sometimes distant lights flicker softly as though keeping time. Her music doesn't just fill the air, it awakens something beneath it. Even Jake, in his own carefree way, might be part of this quiet conversation. His powers defy explanation, bending the rules of the world as though they were only suggestions. But what if his elasticity isn't just magic? What if it's a side effect of his body aligning with the dream's flexibility? Jake moves the way a dream moves, stretching beyond reason, following joy wherever it leads. In his laughter, the gods might find the echo of their own light-hearted imaginings. When these small awakenings ripple across Ooo, they don't disrupt life, they enhance it. Flowers bloom in unexpected colors. The air hums with warmth even in winter. Dreams become lucid and comforting. These are moments when the gods' thoughts drift closer to the surface, touching the waking world with gentle curiosity. For a heartbeat, the line between mortal and divine disappears, and everything feels connected, as if the world itself is exhaling in relief. But sometimes the whispers grow stronger. Sometimes the dream's voice swells too loudly, and the waking world trembles. That's when strange storms appear, storms that bring no rain, only memory. They sweep across the land, carrying scents from long-forgotten times, echoes of laughter, flickers of images from before the war. When the storm passes, the world feels subtly rearranged, as if the dream had briefly rewritten the script of reality. The people of Ooo don't fear these storms anymore. They've learned to listen. When the sky glows violet and the air hums like a song, they pause and breathe, knowing the gods are near, even if only for a moment. It's not a warning. It's a reminder that everything living, every spark of joy and grief, is part of something much larger, something endlessly dreaming beneath their feet. Sometimes the whispers don't come as voices at all, but as feelings that move quietly through the world, a faint chill before dawn, a sudden spark of déjà vu, the way a forest seems to recognize your footsteps. These moments are subtle, easy to miss, but they are the soft breath of the dream brushing against reality. In the oldest corners of Ooo, where moss covers forgotten statues and trees have grown through the bones of cities, these whispers are strongest. The air feels thick with memory there, as though the land itself remembers every dream that ever touched it. There's a cave beneath the western mountains, known only to a few wanderers, where the walls glow faintly with light that doesn't come from fire or gem. It pulses, slow and steady like a heartbeat. Some say that if you sit in that cave long enough, with your eyes closed and your mind quiet, you can hear a lullaby not in any human tongue, but something wordless and ancient, like the melody of existence itself. Those who have listened to it describe feeling as if they were floating between worlds, caught between waking and dreaming. A few claim that when they return to the surface, the stars look different, closer, almost watching. It's said that the gods left pieces of their consciousness scattered across the land when they fell asleep. Some of those fragments became sacred places. Others took root inside living beings. You can see it in the way certain people in Ooo seem to radiate something beyond themselves, a kind of quiet awareness. a spark that feels older than time. It isn't power exactly, but presence. The flame princess carries it when her fire burns soft and blue. Peppermint Butler hides it behind his polite, eerie calm. Even BMO, in their childlike wonder, seems to hum in tune with something cosmic, as though the dream chose to give itself a tiny, joyful voice. The world's creatures respond to these whispers too. The wolves of the Fire Kingdom howl in harmonies that sound eerily like human songs. The birds of the Candy Kingdom occasionally freeze mid-flight, turning in perfect unison, as though guided by an unseen conductor. Even the rivers seem to know where they're meant to flow, bending in patterns that form ancient symbols when seen from the air. None of it is random. The dream is always shaping, always guiding, always remembering itself through every ripple of the waking world. But there's a deeper mystery beneath all of this one that even the wisest beings of Ooo hesitate to name. Sometimes, when the whispers grow too strong, they don't fade away as they should. Instead, they linger. They gather. They form patterns in the air or in the flow of magic, like the beginnings of a thought trying to take shape. When this happens, reality begins to shimmer, as though something enormous is shifting beneath the surface of the dream. Those who sense it describe a quiet hum that grows and grows until it fills the chest, heavy and beautiful, impossible to bear for long. The ancient psychic tandem. War Elephant once told Jake that the dream occasionally tries to wake itself, not fully, but just enough to remember what it is. When that happens, the world trembles, not in fear, but in anticipation. The stars flicker, the oceans pulse, and creatures across Ooo feel it in their bones, a wave of recognition, like remembering a song you've known all your life, but forgotten how to sing. These awakenings never last long. The gods drift back into their rest before their thoughts can fully rise, leaving only the faintest echo in their wake. But in those short moments, the world feels sharper, more alive, more aware of itself. It's during those moments that mortals sometimes experience visions. They see shapes in the sky, patterns in clouds, faces in the moonlight. They hear melodies carried by the wind, messages woven into birdsong. These are not hallucinations. They're memories, glimpses of the dream remembering its origins. They fade quickly, like breath on glass. But they leave behind a strange sense of peace, as though the world has whispered, "I am still here." There's an old belief kept alive among the witches of the nightosphere that if a person listens closely enough during these awakenings, they can hear their true name, not the one they were given, but the one the gods dreamt for them. It's said that this name carries a meaning so deep it can only be understood in silence. Those who claim to have heard it say it felt like coming home. For a brief instant, they understood why they existed at all, and then the feeling passed, leaving only warmth and tears. These moments of connection, fleeting as they are, might be what keep the world from unraveling. The gods' dream is vast, fragile, and ever-shifting, but it stays coherent because the waking world keeps responding. Every dreamer, every singer, every quiet soul who looks at the stars with wonder, they all feed the dream, giving it reason to continue. Maybe that's the secret truth of Ooo, that the gods are not the only ones dreaming. The world itself dreams back. And when those two dreams meet, when the divine and the mortal hum in harmony, the air shivers, the rivers glow, and for a moment, everything is right. Not perfect, not eternal, but beautifully balanced, held together by the gentlest of sounds, a whisper moving through the waking world, reminding all things that they are part of something greater, something endlessly sleeping, endlessly alive. There's a story, buried deep in an old tome found beneath the ruins of Wizard City, that describes a phenomenon called the second breath. It speaks of a time when the boundaries between sleep and waking were thinner than a sigh. During those nights, the stars above Ooo would dim ever so slightly, as if blinking, and the trees would lean toward one another, their leaves trembling without wind. The book claims that this was when the whispers became loud enough to be heard not just by wizards or seers, but by ordinary people, farmers, children, even travelers lost on the road. They would wake in the middle of the night, hearts calm but alert, feeling the air hum softly, like a harp being plucked from far away. In that sound they would feel a message, not words, not commands, but a reassurance that the dream of the gods still watched over them, still wrapped the world in its slow, patient breath. Those who heard it said it changed them forever. They couldn't explain why, but afterward they lived more gently. They spoke slower. They looked at the stars longer. It was as though the whisper reminded them that the act of being alive was already a miracle borrowed from a sleeping cosmos. Even the strongest magicians feared to tamper with this quiet magic. When Princess Bubblegum studied the ancient sound patterns echoing beneath the Candy Kingdom, she found harmonic frequencies that shouldn't exist, tones that seemed to appear between measurable vibrations. It was as though the air itself contained memories of sound older than the universe. Her instruments broke trying to record it, but she later admitted in a rare letter that, during her final attempt, she heard something like a lullaby, soft and unbearably sad, drifting beneath the hum of the machines. She never tried again. Others, however, were drawn to the whispers like moths to light. The dream mages of the Fire Kingdom believed they could trace the source of the murmurs and awaken the gods themselves. Their experiments scorched their own citadels. Witnesses said they saw shapes in the flames, massive eyes opening for a heartbeat, then closing again, leaving only embers that hummed faintly for days. Those who survived claimed the dream was not angry, only weary, like something disturbed from a long-needed rest. But sometimes the whispers come in gentler forms. A child might hum a tune they've never heard before, and their mother will pause, heart trembling, because the melody feels familiar in a way she can't explain. A snowflake might fall into a puddle and bloom into a symbol that fades before it's fully seen. A dream might show someone a place they've never visited, until they stumble upon it years later, unchanged. These are not coincidences. They are the dream's fingerprints, scattered softly across time. The whispering presence doesn't only move through space. It moves through memory, through meaning. When someone dies in Ooo, their final breath sometimes carries a note, a sound that lingers a fraction of a second too long. Marceline once said she could hear those tones, small, vanishing echoes that drift through the night air. She called them the dream's exhale. They are not cries or laments, but small releases of energy, like sighs returning home. Every one of them is caught by the dream, woven into the tapestry of its eternal slumber. There are nights when the moonlight in Ooo feels unusually heavy, pouring like liquid silver over the land. On those nights, even the most restless creatures grow still. Wolves lie down beside rabbits. The wind loses its teeth. The world listens. That's when the whispers seem closest to the surface, close enough that you can almost hear them beneath your breath if you stay very, very quiet. They sound like ocean waves spoken backward, like the rustle of pages turning inside a mind. Some say that if you listen long enough, the whispers begin to take shape, becoming voices, faces, whole memories of the sleeping gods. You might see their dreams flicker through the trees or ripple across the surface of a lake. You might see vast shapes moving behind clouds too large to name. But the most curious thing is that these visions never frighten those who witness them. Instead, they feel safe, protected, as though the world itself were cradling them. Because perhaps that's exactly what's happening. The gods who fell asleep didn't abandon the world. They became it. Every mountain curve, every heartbeat, every gust of wind is part of their slow, ongoing dream. The whispers are their breathing, their gentle way of saying that all is still as it should be. They are not waiting to awaken in anger or glory. They are simply dreaming us all into being, one soft sigh at a time. And so, whenever the whispers return through wind, through song, through silence, they are a reminder that the dream never ended, that Ooo, strange and luminous as it is not a place of chaos or accident. It is the lullaby of something ancient still half asleep, dreaming itself through time. The people of Ooo may never know when or if the gods will ever fully wake. But as long as the whispers move through the world, brushing against leaves, rivers, and hearts, it means that life still hums in harmony with that divine rest. The dream continues, and maybe that's enough. When something vast begins to stir, it does not announce itself with thunder or light. It moves quietly, like the first breath of dawn after 1,000 years of night. Deep beneath the soil of Ooo, far below the caverns and roots, something ancient has begun to turn in its sleep. Not a full awakening, not yet, but a shift, a murmur in the bones of the world. Those who are sensitive to magic feel it as a change in the air, a trembling that seems to live inside their ribs. Finn once described a dream where he stood in the middle of a silent forest. The trees were made of glass, and the stars above were breathing, expanding and contracting with the rhythm of his heart. Then he felt it, a slow pulse beneath his feet, echoing like a drumbeat buried under the world. When he awoke, he said it wasn't frightening. It felt familiar, as though the land itself were remembering something. That is how forgotten power returns, not as a weapon, not as destruction, but as memory. The slumbering gods, the dreamers of existence, may never fully open their eyes, but when they turn in their sleep, their thoughts ripple outward, becoming storms, new life, or strange magic that doesn't seem to obey any known rule. The Ice King's crown, the Enchiridion, even the elemental essence that flows through Princess Bubblegum and Flame Princess, all may be remnants of this dreaming motion, pieces of divine energy that drifted to the surface when the gods shifted long ago. There's a legend told among the oldest flame spirits about a being called the Ember King, not a ruler of their kind, but a thought, an echo of the first fire that existed before light itself. They say that every 1,000 years his dream flares up again, moving through the fires of the world, teaching them how to burn brighter. When he stirs, volcanoes awaken, stars grow restless, and new magic sparks into being. The fire elementals call it a blessing. The rest of the world feels it as summer growing too hot, too alive, as though the sky itself were sweating under invisible heat. In the far north, among the broken glaciers that used to surround the Ice Kingdom, explorers have reported seeing shapes beneath the ice that glow faintly blue. They are not spirits or reflections. They move with intent, pulsing in rhythm like sleeping hearts. One explorer swore she saw a giant's hand pressed against the ice, fingers larger than mountains. When she touched the surface, the temperature fell instantly, frost crawling up her arm like a living thing. She returned home changed, her hair white, her voice softer, and she never spoke of it again. Some say she was touched by the dream of the ancient frost, the one that gave birth to all cold things. And then there are these strange surges of energy that scholars in Wizard City have begun to notice. Spells that once required immense concentration now respond almost effortlessly, as if the magic itself wants to be used. Potions brew faster. Crystals hum at higher frequencies. And in some parts of the world, plants have begun to glow faintly under moonlight, not with the light of science or radiation, but with something older, something alive. The magisters of the city whisper that the sleeping powers of the earth are stirring again, and that the boundaries between dream and reality are softening. The Candy Kingdom, too, feels it in its own way. Some of Bubblegum's creations have begun to act strangely, developing independent thought or memory they were never programmed for. Peppermint Butler, always the first to sense dark currents, says it is not chaos, it is resonance. The energy of the dream world humming in tune with the waking one. He believes that when the gods move in their slumber, they do not cause madness, but inspiration. Their half-formed thoughts manifest as invention, creation, and even love. To him, all sentient life is a reflection of that dreaming force, the gods imagining what it means to be alive through the minds of mortals. Still, not every stirring is gentle. Deep in the nightosphere, where chaos and hunger reside, something else feels to change. Hunson Abadir has mentioned, half-jokingly, that the walls of his realm feel thinner lately, as if pressed from the outside. Shadows move without owners. The realm hums with low vibrations, like something massive breathing beyond its edge. He pretends to be amused, but even he has stopped smiling as often. Perhaps even chaos knows the unease of a shifting dream. There's an odd balance forming in Ooo now, a strange tension between the deep slumber of forgotten divinity and the fragile waking of mortal life. It's as though both worlds are trying to remember each other. The dream wants to wake, but the waking world doesn't want to vanish. And so they exist in this trembling harmony, each sigh of the gods reflected as wind, each heartbeat mirrored as thunder, each turning thought blooming into new magic across the land. And maybe that's what keeps Ooo alive, not the survival of kingdoms or heroes, but this subtle communion between the sleeping infinite and the dreaming finite. A world built not from certainty, but from half-remembered thoughts, softly taking shape beneath an eternal sky. Sometimes, the signs of awakening are so faint that they could easily be mistaken for dreams themselves. A glimmer of light that lingers too long after dawn, a cloud that moves against the wind, a ripple across a lake that comes from nowhere at all. But to those who are attuned to the rhythm of Ooo, such things are not coincidences. They are messages, quiet tremors sent through reality by the sleeping powers beneath it. Marceline, drifting between songs one quiet night, once told Finn that she had begun to feel music in the dirt. She said that when she stood barefoot on the ground, she could hear faint melodies rising from below, notes that no instrument could play, humming through the bones of the planet. It wasn't frightening, she said. It was beautiful, like the world was singing to itself. Finn didn't quite understand it then, but he nodded, sensing the truth behind her words. Oo's melody has always been there, only now it's getting louder. Even the skies have started to echo. Some nights, the constellations flicker, rearranging themselves into shapes that no astronomer has ever charted before. They twist into spirals, eyes or hands, reaching across the firmament. A few times, Jake has woken from a nap claiming he dreamed of floating faces above the clouds, faces carved from light, smiling faintly as if remembering something lost. The next morning, when he looked up, he swore he saw their faint outlines still shimmering in the air. In the ruins of the old human cities, the stirring feels heavier. Machines that should have long since rusted now hum softly again. Their lights blink like slow heartbeats, responding to some distant pulse. The moss that covers them glows faintly when the moon rises, as though feeding on the same energy that moves through Oo's magic. Some wanderers have even reported hearing words whispered through broken radios, fragmented sentences that speak of warmth, sleep, and awakening. Most write it off as the wind, but a few believe they are hearing the remnants of the gods' dreaming voices bleeding through the static. The elemental kingdoms, bound as they are to the world's natural forces, have begun to reflect the change in their own ways. The fire kingdom burns cleaner, steadier, its flames softer yet stronger. The water nymphs of the southern lakes say their tides rise and fall in strange new rhythms, as though guided by the heartbeat of something sleeping beneath the waves. The earth kingdom has grown restless, its mountains rumbling faintly at night, stones shifting as though breathing in slow motion. And the air elementals, those who dwell among the highest clouds, speak of new currents that seem to circle in on themselves, forming spirals that whisper ancient names. Even the spirits that wander between worlds are restless. The dream hares of the night garden, creatures that leap between sleeping minds, have begun to vanish mid-jump. The few that return speak in slow, rhythmic patterns, describing vast shapes moving beneath them, great coiling forms that fill the dream space from horizon to horizon. The dream hares say that those forms are not dangerous, only enormous, and that the air around them feels peaceful, like a lullaby you could walk across. In places where magic once faded, it begins to grow again. Forests long turned to ash sprout tiny blossoms overnight. Ruined temples start to hum with warmth, their carvings glowing faintly as if remembering their purpose. Even the enchanted objects of old, wands, crowns, rings, and stones, are waking from long dormancy. They vibrate in the hands of those who hold them, responding to energies that have lain still for centuries. The wizards, of course, are taking note. Within the upper halls of Wizard City, a quiet panic brews beneath scholarly calm. Some see this rising current as a blessing, the beginning of a new magical age. Others fear it is the first sign of imbalance. For if the sleeping gods are truly stirring, what does that mean for the order of things? What happens when the dreamers begin to dream differently? For now, there is no clear answer. The world hasn't unraveled. The sun still rises. People still laugh, love, and wonder. But beneath it all, there's a subtle vibration, a hum that never quite fades. If one stands perfectly still, say, on a hill overlooking the plains of Ooo, you can feel it in your chest. A slow, steady rhythm, as if the ground itself were breathing. Perhaps the gods are not waking to destroy or to rule, but simply to shift, to stretch, to turn over, to remember what they once dreamed. And maybe that's all it takes for the world to change again. A single, divine heartbeat echoing through time, quietly reshaping everything that listens. In the soft hours before dawn, when the horizon is still painted with the faintest blue, the signs of the stirring become clearer to those who listen rather than look. Birds begin to sing notes they have never sung before, strange harmonies that echo across valleys and vanish into the mist. Rivers run smoother, their surfaces trembling as if tracing invisible music. And when the first light touches the land, it lingers longer on certain places. Ancient ruins, quiet lakes, lonely stones standing like forgotten markers. It's as if the light itself remembers. Finn once told Bubblegum that he felt something changing inside him too. Not like magic or power, but something quieter, deeper. He said that some nights he could feel the heartbeat of the world beneath his feet, and that it pulsed in time with his own. Bubblegum, ever the scientist, dismissed it at first. But later she admitted she'd been feeling the same. A strange resonance in the air, a warmth that came from nowhere, a sense that something vast was listening. Even beings built of sugar and science could not remain untouched by that ancient hum. Those who still practice old rituals, witches, druids, and the remnants of the elemental monks, believe that the dream of the gods is blending again with the waking world. They call it the stirring of the deep dream. And they say it happens once every few ages, whenever reality grows thin and memory begins to blur with myth. During these rare crossings, the ancient forces that shaped Ooo become restless, sending fragments of themselves into mortal thought. A whisper becomes inspiration. A flicker of starlight becomes invention. The divine dream leaks gently into creation. But like all great awakenings, it is not without consequence. Magic is not good or evil. It is alive, and it reacts to attention. The more it is felt, the more it grows, shaping itself according to the hearts of those who sense it. When a kind soul touches it, it becomes light, music, healing. When a heart burdened by fear reaches out, it bends into shadow. That is why, in this time of stirring, Ooo seems both more alive and more haunted. The world reflects not only the gods' half-dreaming thoughts, but also the unspoken longings of every creature living within it. In the depths of the ocean, where the pressure would crush any mortal body, the sleeping cities of the old world hum faintly. Machines built before the Great Mushroom War began to flicker with life again, their screens showing ghostly patterns of light that resemble constellations. Some sailors whisper of vast shapes moving far below, serpents of glass and gold gliding through the trenches like gentle titans. They do not attack. They only pass, leaving trails of bioluminescent dust that glimmer for days. The sailors call them the dream currents, believing them to be manifestations of the sleeping gods, remembering the ocean's first song. Above ground, the forests seem to share the same slow awakening. The ancient trees, those that have stood since before the war, have begun to change color, not with seasons, but with mood. Their leaves glow faintly blue when the night is calm, then shift to green when people laugh nearby, as though the forest itself is aware of emotion again. Some travelers have even claimed to hear the trees sigh softly when the wind passes through, their roots pulsing with faint warmth like a heartbeat deep underground. Magic itself is starting to behave less like a tool and more like a living thing. Spells cast without care have begun to ripple outward, growing unpredictable. A simple levitation charm might cause nearby objects to float too, drawn into the rhythm of the caster's energy. Healing potions shimmer longer before settling, as though deciding whether or not to obey. It is as if the world's old systems, those delicate boundaries between cause and effect, are loosening, and something vaster is taking their place. Even dreams have become more vivid. People wake remembering places they've never been. Golden halls suspended in clouds, vast halls beneath oceans, cities carved into the light itself. Some say they dream of the gods directly, colossal beings who speak not in words but in colors or in the rhythm of waves. And when they wake, they find small traces of those dreams in reality. Sand in their beds, faint salt on their lips, the echo of light behind their eyelids that doesn't fade for hours. It is easy to think of this stirring as a return of power, but in truth, it feels more like remembrance. The world isn't gaining new energy. It's remembering the energy it always had. The same current that flows through the stars flows through every living thing, through the stones, the rivers, the smallest spark of consciousness. The gods, in their long sleep, forgot themselves, and now, as they dream more vividly, so too does the world around them, like a mirror slowly clearing of dust. Perhaps this is what rebirth looks like in the language of the cosmos, not a loud eruption, but a quiet remembering. The gods dreaming themselves back into awareness through the soft hum of rivers and the warmth of sunrise, and we, the small ones, the dream echoes walking upon their sleeping bodies, are beginning to feel the tremor of that memory beneath our feet once again. In every age, there comes a moment when the line between dream and reality thins, and those who walk the world begin to sense that they are standing inside something much larger than themselves. That moment has returned to Ooo. The dreamers have not fully awoken, but their gentle motion, each sigh, each faint stirring of cosmic thought, ripples outward, touching even the smallest corners of existence. At night, when the stars shimmer with unusual rhythm, people find themselves pausing, unsure why they suddenly feel a weightless calm. They might glance at the sky and feel deep in their bones that something vast is breathing with them. A shepherd watching over their flock might hum a melody that comes from nowhere. A wanderer crossing the empty plains might see strange lights dancing just above the grass, moving as though they were alive. None of them can explain these moments. They simply accept them, feeling watched over not by eyes, but by presence itself. The stirring of forgotten powers is not violent. It is tender, like an old memory returning. There are stories whispered by the candle monks of the southern cliffs, who claim that the gods once promised never to wake all at once. Instead, they would breathe slowly through time, each inhalation birthing new life, each exhalation gathering lost souls back into the dream. What Ooo feels now may be such an inhalation, a gathering of energy, the quiet intake before creation renews itself again. Strange coincidences begin to align. Across the Candy Kingdom, the clocks run just slightly slower during the night, as though the flow of time hesitates to disturb the peace. In the Fire Kingdom, blue flames, symbols of transformation, burn alongside the red ones without consuming anything. The Ice Kingdom's glaciers shift with eerie grace, forming shapes that resemble enormous wings spread beneath the surface. And in the heart of the forests of shadows, the air hums faintly with a chorus too low for human hearing, a vibration that the woodland creatures follow as if it were guiding them somewhere unseen. Those who know the old way say that Ooo itself is preparing for something, that the land feels like a body waking from a long and dream-filled rest, stretching its limbs, remembering its strength. Even the magic fields, the invisible webs that connect everything, glow more brightly now in certain places. The ancient ruins of the Mushroom War pulse with energy not of technology but of thought. It's as if the remnants of the old world are being rewritten into something softer, more harmonious. For a few, this awakening brings fear. The wizards, who have long relied on structure and precision, worry that their craft will become unpredictable, that raw magic will no longer obey their logic. But others, especially those who walk the line between science and spirit, see beauty in it. They believe that the gods' stirring is not chaos, it is renewal, that their dreaming presence is recalibrating the balance of Ooo, allowing forgotten possibilities to bloom once more. One evening, on a hill overlooking the plains, Finn and Jake sit watching the sunset. The sky ripples with slow waves of color, golden bleeding into violet, violet into soft blue. The air feels charged yet peaceful, like a heartbeat just under the skin of the world. Jake says it reminds him of when he first learned to stretch, how the power had always been inside him, waiting until something finally clicked and it just flowed out naturally. Finn smiles quietly and says, maybe the world is doing the same thing. Maybe it's learning to stretch again. When night falls, the two stay up longer than usual, watching the stars shimmer in unfamiliar constellations. Somewhere in the distance, a low hum rises, barely audible, like the earth whispering to itself. Finn rests his hand on the ground and feels a faint vibration beneath his palm. A pulse, steady and slow. It feels alive, not in the way of something separate, but in the way that reminds him he's part of it. The wind passes warm and soft, carrying with it the scent of grass, and something older, like the memory of rain. And in that quiet moment, the truth of the stirring becomes clear. The gods who sleep beneath the world are not waking to reclaim or rule. They are simply remembering what they dreamed long ago. Life, warmth, and the delicate harmony of all things connected. Every act of kindness, every moment of stillness, every small dream dreamt by the living feeds into that great memory, keeping it alive. The power that moves beneath Ooo is not separate from its people. It is their shared heartbeat, the continuation of a lullaby that began before the first sunrise. The stirring of forgotten powers is not the end of peace. It is its continuation, unfolding in a new rhythm. As the gods turn in their sleep, they carry all of Ooo within them, its laughter, its sorrow, its light. And the land, in return, hums their dream back to them, ensuring that neither ever fully fades. Somewhere in the far distance, a mountain exhales a soft plume of golden mist. A river glows faintly with the reflection of unseen stars. The dream moves gently through them all, patient and infinite. The gods still rest, but their breath fills the world. The world of Ooo is a tapestry woven from light, memory, and the soft breathing of beings that are older than the very stars themselves. We have wandered together through forests of whispers, across rivers of forgotten dreams, and beneath mountains where gods lie asleep. Now we arrive at the deepest part of our journey, the eternal dream itself, the quiet truth that perhaps the waking world is merely a shadow of something far grander. Imagine, if you will, a vast space without edges. No sky, no land, no air, only the slow, gentle pulse of thought, stretching wider than imagination. This is where the sleeping gods reside, a place outside time, where consciousness flows like water through infinite channels. Each god dreams not only of creation, but of the echoes that creation will leave behind. Their slumber is not emptiness, it is fullness. It is the deliberate, unhurried weaving of worlds that will ripple into life when the conditions are right. In Ooo, we see the fragments of this eternal dream everywhere. Every flicker of magic, every strange phenomenon, every song and story carries the imprint of divine sleep. The Ice King's unpredictable antics, the strange behaviors of elemental beings, the sudden bloom of forgotten flora, all of these are echoes of the gods' thoughts brushing against reality. When we feel wonder or fear or joy, it is because something ancient is remembering itself through us. Even the heroes of Ooo, Finn and Jake, are participants in this quiet communion. Finn's courage, his longing for understanding, his search for meaning in every adventure, all of it resonates with the dream. Jake, with his flexible form and unbound perception of the world, embodies its fluidity. They do not need to know the full truth. Their hearts already speak the language of the gods, responding to the rhythm of something eternal that moves beneath the surface. Some nights, when the moon hangs low and the air is still, one can almost feel the breath of the gods in the stars themselves. The constellations shift subtly, tracing shapes that defy human understanding, as though the universe is dreaming out loud. Stars twinkle in response to the quiet motions of beings who have not stirred fully for millennia, yet whose thoughts ripple through space with the precision of a lullaby. Those who watch carefully, wizards, dreamers, even the most ordinary travelers, sometimes see brief flickers of motion, tiny patterns that make no sense to ordinary logic, but feel profoundly right in the heart. Marceline once sang a song she didn't know she knew. As she drifted in sleep, her voice carried through the night, tracing a melody that touched every living thing. Flowers leaned toward the sound, rivers shimmered, and the wind carried it across mountains. Even the stars seemed to pulse in time with her chords. It was a song born not from thought, but from instinct, the instinctive resonance of a dreamer touching the eternal sleep of the gods. In moments like this, It becomes clear that the eternal dream is not separate from the waking world. It flows through every melody, every thought, every act of being. The gods' sleep is not passive. They are not resting as humans do. Instead, they dream actively, weaving threads of possibility that extend beyond the bounds of comprehension. Ooo, as we know it, may exist only because their minds have chosen to extend themselves in this direction. The strange phenomena we witness, the unexplainable magic, the living songs of land and water, the sentient echoes of lost cities, are all gestures of that dreaming. Each ripple is intentional, gentle, deliberate, as if the world itself is rehearsing life before fully revealing it. Even creatures that seem small or insignificant are part of this intricate rhythm. A butterfly's wing beat may trace a pattern that aligns with invisible constellations. A sleeping fox may dream in a language older than any wizard's spell, influencing the direction of rivers or the growth of forests. The tiniest actions, the quietest thoughts, all echo into the eternal dream, feeding it, shaping it, becoming part of its unending cycle. The eternal dream moves slowly, deliberately, like the turning of a vast, invisible wheel. It does not hurry, nor does it stumble. Time has little meaning here. A thought can ripple across millennia as easily as a single moment, and yet it leaves traces in Ooo, small enough, that most beings hardly notice, subtle enough that only those who stop, listen, and feel the world can perceive them. A glimmer in a pond, a flicker in a candle, a faint vibration under bare feet. These are all hints of the immense consciousness beneath, reminders that something larger hums just out of sight. Magic in this context is not simply a tool or a force to wield. It is the language of the god's slumber made tangible, the pattern of thought made manifest. When a wizard casts a spell, or a creature bends the rules of reality, they are conversing, even unknowingly, with the eternal dream. Every action becomes a word, every intention note, every emotion a vibration that the sleeping gods can sense. The dream does not demand, it does not judge. It simply responds, weaving the ripples into itself, shaping the world in subtle, graceful ways. Sometimes these responses manifest in astonishing forms. Forests may rearrange themselves overnight, forming mazes or paths that guide travelers toward hidden truths. Rivers might shift course to uncover ruins long forgotten, revealing fragments of histories buried beneath centuries of soil and stone. Even the sky participates, bending light on scattering stars or refracting moonlight to highlight places of significance. In these moments, the veil between the waking world and the eternal dream thins so completely that it is possible to step from one into the other without realizing it. The gods' dreams are not abstract or meaningless. They are deeply intertwined with emotion, memory, and consciousness. They remember not just the world as it is, but the world as it might be, the lives that might unfold, the choices that could shape reality. Every joy, sorrow, hope, or loss within Ooo echoes into their minds, where it becomes part of a larger cosmic symphony. The waking and the dreaming coalesce into one continuous, flowing awareness, a reminder that even the smallest life holds significance within the vastness of creation. Sometimes, this awareness speaks directly to those who are sensitive enough to perceive it. Finn, in rare moments of quiet, has felt an unexplainable clarity, a sense that the universe itself is acknowledging him. Jake senses the flexibility of possibility, the elasticity not just of his body, but of existence itself. Marceline perceives it in tones that have no names, melodies older than any songbook, resonating deep within her soul. Even seemingly ordinary beings, the animals, the plants, the wind, feel the gentle tug of the dream, responding in ways that sustain the balance of Ooo. The waking world and the eternal dream are not separate entities. They are two sides of the same being, like the inhale and exhale of a vast, timeless breath. What we perceive as strange phenomena, miracles, or inexplicable occurrences are simply the dream interacting with its reflection, aligning itself with the heartbeat of life. The gods do not need to awaken fully for their presence to shape the world. Every ripple, every flicker, every soft sigh carries the imprint of their consciousness, guiding Ooo toward harmony without ever intruding. And so the eternal dream persists, patient and infinite. It is not constrained by the passing of days or the fall of kingdoms. It does not demand our understanding, nor does it require acknowledgement to continue. It simply flows, responding to life, weaving the forgotten and the new, shaping the unseen, and nurturing the waking world in silence. Those who perceive even a fraction of it, who notice the faint rhythms beneath their feet, the subtle melodies in the air, become part of its slow, unending song. The eternal dream does not rush. It stretches across time with the patience of stars, unbroken and unhurried. In its vast, sleeping consciousness, there is no hurry to awaken, for it knows that all things will unfold in their own perfect rhythm. Yet this deliberate pace does not mean inaction. Each thought that stirs within its slumber sends ripples across Ooo, gently nudging reality, shaping it without force, guiding it with a soft hand that can be felt only by those willing to pause and listen. Sometimes these ripples take the form of coincidence, or what mortals might call coincidence, but are in truth subtle threads of influence. A lost traveler might stumble upon a hidden sanctuary. A child dreaming of a song never heard might hum the melody aloud, influencing the growth of magical plants. A lone wanderer might look up at the stars and feel inexplicably comforted, unaware that their heartbeat has synchronized with the pulse of something vast and timeless. Each small act, each fleeting perception, feeds back into the dream, allowing it to learn, remember, and continue its quiet work. The creatures of Ooo, though often oblivious to the depth of what surrounds them, respond instinctively. Wolves in the fire kingdom howl in harmonies no one can teach. Birds align their migrations with patterns unseen by human eyes. The forests themselves seem alive, leaves turning in patterns that suggest knowledge, intention, or even communication with something beyond the ordinary senses. It is a subtle choreography, a silent music composed by a mind older than time, one that requires no conductor, only the openness of life to flow into it. Even time itself seems to bend in response. The ancient psychic tandem war elephant once remarked that certain nights feel longer, not in hours, but in depth. Moments stretch like honey, filled with resonance, giving the impression that the world is listening more closely, waiting. On these nights, memories awaken in the hearts of those who have long forgotten, dreams become more vivid, and magic flows with unusual clarity. The dream does not need to be woken fully to affect the waking world. It moves gently through it, making small corrections, planting seeds of insight, and nurturing the fragile harmony that allows Ooo to exist in its strange, luminous way. And yet there is awareness in this quiet stirring. The gods in their eternal sleep perceive everything through their dreams, seeing the choices, fears, hopes, and joys of mortals as threads in a tapestry. Finn's courage, Jake's adaptability, Marceline's music, Bubblegum's innovation. They are all noticed, reflected, and subtly guided, not coerced, not controlled, but acknowledged, as one might trace a familiar pattern with a finger, knowing each line is significant. In this way, the god's presence is not dictatorial. It is attentive, responsive, and profoundly patient. There are places where the touch of this dreaming presence is almost tangible. Ruined cities long buried beneath moss and stone exude a faint warmth at night, as though the foundations themselves remember their builders. Rivers hum with soft rhythmic pulses that mirror the heartbeat of the sleeping gods. Mountains shift imperceptibly, their slow adjustments resonating through valleys and vibrations felt by those with quiet enough senses. Even the wind carries subtle hints of thought, brushing gently against faces, reminding them of something they had almost forgotten. The eternal dream also interacts with the raw magic of Ooo. Spellwork, potions, and enchantments respond differently now than they once did, not because the laws of magic have changed, but because the dream has begun to overlay itself upon them. Objects long inert regain faint life. Flames burn with unanticipated colors. Crystals resonate with melodies only perceivable in silence. These awakenings are subtle, never violent, yet they are unmistakable for those who pause to sense them. Magic itself is no longer simply a tool. It is conversation, collaboration, and reflection of the dream's pulse. This harmony extends beyond mortals and magic to memory and legacy. The stories of ancient heroes, lost civilizations, and forgotten moments echo within the dream, preserved not as words, but as living experience. When someone remembers a legend, hums an old tune, or uncovers a relic, they are interacting with the god's consciousness, adding their understanding to its infinite tapestry. Each thought, each feeling, each act of attention becomes a note in a symphony older than the stars. And as the dream flows, it does not distinguish between light and shadow. Both are threads in the same intricate pattern, each necessary to the whole. Joy and sorrow, creation and decay, hope and fear, they all coexist within its rhythm. Even the chaotic forces of the nightosphere, the mischief of pranksters, and the missteps of heroes are absorbed and woven into its subtle music. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is irrelevant. The eternal dream embraces all, holding every element of Ooo in its soft, infinite awareness. As the eternal dream flows, it carries with it a sense of continuity that is both comforting and humbling. Everything that has happened, everything that will happen, and everything that might happen exists simultaneously within its slow, deliberate consciousness. It is not confined by the linearity of mortal time, nor limited by the perception of individual beings. Instead, it enfolds all of Ooo, all of its history, all of its creatures, and all of its magic in a single, ever-expanding rhythm. The gods who slumber beneath the world are not distant observers. They are part of the fabric of life itself, breathing through the mountains, rivers, skies, and forests. Their presence is woven to every gust of wind that brushes across a meadow, every ripple in a quiet lake, every rustle of leaves in an empty forest. To those who are attuned to the subtle currents of the world, it is possible to feel their slumber as a soft vibration beneath the skin, a gentle pulse that reminds one of the vastness and intimacy of existence all at once. Sometimes the dream reaches into the minds of mortals as visions or intuitions. Finn may find a sudden clarity, knowing instinctively the path he must take, not because someone guides him, but because he is in tune with the rhythm of something far greater. Marceline may dream melodies that she cannot explain, yet when she sings them, the land responds, the rivers shimmer, the wind hums, and creatures pause, listening. Bubblegum may discover new forms of magic or science as if ideas themselves are being whispered into her consciousness by forces that have no form but infinite intent. Even those unaware of the god's presence are touched by the dream in ways too subtle to notice. A child finds comfort in a song they cannot name. A traveler stumbles upon a hidden spring, quenching their thirst in a place that seems guided by some unseen hand. A wolf pauses mid-step, sensing the alignment of the forest in a way that defies explanation. Life continues, yet beneath its surface flows the rhythm of beings older than memory, shaping the world in ways that are felt more than understood. The beauty of the eternal dream is its patience. There's no urgency, no need to awaken fully. The gods rest, because rest is creation itself. Each thought, each sigh, each movement of their vast consciousness sends waves through Ooo, guiding growth, inspiring courage, preserving memory, and nurturing life. There is no beginning and no end, only the continuous unfolding of possibility, the gentle rhythm of dreaming through existence. And yet, there is a delicate balance. For all its infinite patience, the dream responds to the world it encompasses. Acts of kindness resonate with it, reinforcing harmony. Moments of cruelty or neglect send ripples of tension, small disturbances that must be absorbed and smoothed. The gods' dreaming is not blind or indifferent. It is attentive, aware of every vibration that passes through the land they cradle. In this way, Ooo is both a playground and a mirror, reflecting back the intentions, hopes, and fears of its inhabitants, shaping itself in response to their actions. Perhaps the most remarkable part of this eternal dream is its accessibility. It does not require great power, knowledge, or strength to touch it. One only needs presence, stillness, attention, a willingness to perceive. Sitting quietly on a hill at night, listening to the wind through the trees, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath bare feet, it is possible to sense the dream brushing against the waking world. Every small observation, every breath of awareness, is a conversation with the slumbering gods, a participation in the slow, ongoing act of creation. Even the smallest beings have significance. A butterfly, a drop of rain, a glowing mushroom in a dark forest. They are all threads in the tapestry, each contributing to the music of the eternal dream. Every life, every thought, every movement is noticed and reflected back, magnified in subtle ways. The gods may sleep, but their consciousness flows through the minutiae of existence, as well as the grand, shaping everything in tandem, guiding without dictating, influencing without forcing. Perhaps one of the most comforting truths is that nothing in Ooo is truly lost. The dream remembers all that is past. Memories of joy, sorrow, love, and adventure linger, not as shadows or regrets, but as living parts of the world. They are woven into the soil, the trees, the water, and the wind, waiting to be rediscovered, understood, and appreciated. The eternal dream preserves, nurtures, and unfolds everything, ensuring that even what seems forgotten continues to exist, quietly, patiently, profoundly. And so, Ooo persists, luminous and strange, magical and alive, because the gods continue to dream, and because the dream reaches into every corner of the world. They stir and sigh, shaping reality with infinite care, breathing life into the land and its inhabitants without ever fully awakening. It is not a sleep of absence, but a sleep of presence, a quiet, eternal act of creation. The world itself is a lullaby, a testament to the patience, love, and infinite imagination of those who dream beyond time. And as we lie here, listening to the whispers of leaves, the soft hum of rivers, the distant shimmer of stars, we too become part of this dream. We are threads in the tapestry, echoes in the song, vibrations in the pulse of something ancient and infinite. And with that thought, we can close our eyes, let the rhythm carry us, and drift into the quiet, comforting arms of the eternal dream. Good night.